I recommend this. I recommend this because there's a lot of information that's going to come at you.
Right.
And I don't want you to be like, oh God, I got to write all this down. I mean, taking notes is excellent. If you want to do that, love that.
Mm-hmm.
But not a requirement because we
Got
have this. So,
it.
okay, brilliant. Just want to take a minute and breathe. Zoom always stresses me out. I don't know. It's like I have to change my freaking password every time I use
Oh
it.
no.
So, okay, I'm going to stop complaining. I'm going to share the screen and show
Okay.
you your chart and the stuff that we. Okay. All right. Can you see your chart?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Before we get started, I want to make very sure that I have the birth information right, because if I don't, I'm reading someone else's chart and not
Mm-hmm.
yours. So I have September 20th, 2003 at 11:56 a.m. in
Yep.
Manhasset, New York. Is that
Yeah.
how you say that? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Good. So this is Molly. Okay. Okay. Marvelous. And then I'm going to take a look at my notes. I tend to sit with a chart for a few hours or over the course of a couple days,
Mm-hmm.
and just take copious notes so I have so I'm
Yeah.
not blanking when I'm in front of you talking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's start by you telling me a little bit about how much astrology you know.
Yeah, I think I have like a pretty basic knowledge.
Okay.
Like I know like the planets and like houses, but I wouldn't really be able to like look at a chart and kind of know what's going on.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, pretty basic, I guess.
Okay, excellent. Well, I mean that some basis of knowledge is marvelous. So, a lot of people are like, I know my sun sign,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's all. So you sound like have you when you say planets and houses, have you dug into your chart, or was it like more like learning about what Mercury means?
Kind of a little bit of both. Like I guess like I have like a kind of basic understanding of like the different placements in my chart and what they mean, but I guess that's kind of it. Yeah.
Okay, okay, brilliant. Okay, fantastic. So, so we can. This is a co-creation. We can proceed one of many different ways. One would be for me to just start delineating your chart, talking about personality, talking about kind of how you show up or how you feel, in relationship to other things happening. So we can
Mhm.
do that. That's interesting and that's fun. We can jump into the question that you had. We
Mhm.
can and then later on, I'd like to start talking about some of the. This is Belle, my dog. Hello, Belle. Um, I'd like to start talking about some of the current happenings in the sky beyond your static natal chart. So
Mhm.
do you want to hear the personality stuff, or do you feel like you have that? Tell me.
Um, I think I'd like to hear it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, because I always do that. Part of it is I always do it in my prep. Part of it is to
Mhm.
just kind of me getting to feel like I have a little bit of a handle on on you and how you may be showing up, even though there's
Right.
scads of different manifestations of each
Mhm.
placement,
Right.
but but okay, brilliant. So obviously that you have a Virgo sun,
Mhm.
and I tend not to emphasize the sun placement in my readings, in part
Mhm.
because most people who show up for an astrology reading kind of know what that is already. They've looked it up.
Right.
but you have some interesting interplays with your sun in other things, and we'll talk about that later. You also have a Scorpio rising chart. Is that what you have
Yeah.
found in your, okay. And so Scorpio ruled by Mars down here in the 5th house in Pisces.
Okay.
Okay. So that's going to flavor, even because a Scorpio rising chart, I think a lot of people in the, and maybe not professional astrologers because we've learned better, but a lot of people who have enough knowledge to be dangerous go, ooh, Scorpio rising. Oh,
Yeah.
And so so that can show up. A, a, a Scorpio rising chart, depending on where Mars is, can show up being fairly intense, fairly, expecting other people to kind of be ride or die, like, you need to be loyal to me, otherwise, you're dead to me, kind of that kind of intensity. With Mars in Pisces, though, that's going to be softened a little bit. You're not going to be necessarily that intense scorpion stinger
Right.
kind of personality, because where that Mars is just won't really let you. In addition, because that Mars is in the sign opposite your sun, which is kind of your central core personality, you can kind of have a little bit of difficulty accessing your Marsianness. So anger is an issue, or not? I mean, accessing your anger, is that an issue for you?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I always feel like I just never feel angry, and, like, sometimes I almost, like, I don't know, wish I could in a weird way.
Okay. Yeah. So this is kind of one of those, I hate life lessons, but I'm going to use it because I can't think of a better term right now. But it's one of those things where the the situations and the circumstances in your life with this chart are going to kind of come back around and give you opportunities to assert yourself, and
Right.
until you get that until you develop that
Mhm.
skill set. And you're young, and you have time, but it's it it if you do the if you lean into the avoidance aspect of this,
Right.
you will get those a lot
Mhm.
repeatedly until you finally go, all right, I've had enough, you know.
Right.
So that might be something for you to just put put in, what's the phrase, put in your cap, I don't know, anyway,
Yeah.
it's something for you to think about and go, okay, so
Mhm.
next time I have this showing up, I can maybe recognize it, make some
Right.
different choices, do
Mhm.
something that might not feel comfortable, and
Mhm.
figure out something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so, and there's a lot happening here with this Mars. This Mars looks like he's by himself the
Mhm.
in Pisces, and he is, but he's super closely conjunct to this Uranus. So Uranus, as you may already know, is the planet of change and revolution, and let's just clear the board. Um,
Mhm.
Uranus is, I like to say that Uranus is value neutral in terms of the change it brings. Unlike
Mhm.
Mars, which kind of likes to bring mayhem and, you know, disagreeable stuff sometimes,
Yeah.
Uranus is just like, I don't really care if you think it's good or bad. It just needs to change.
Mhm.
So the two of them are kind of, even though they're not in the same sign. And I use this chart may look a little different for you because you may have used Placidus in the past, a different house system. I use whole signs.
Okay.
So
Mm.
they're all good. It's not like, oh, that one's wrong and this one,
Yeah.
but
Mm.
this is just the one that I use because of reasons.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's by its Pisces. I mean, Mars in Pisces looks like it's by itself, but it's vibing very closely with Uranus. In addition,
Mhm.
did you know that Mars was retrograde when you were born?
No, I did not.
Yeah, which
That's
is
interesting. Yeah.
it is interesting, and it's one of the least common retrogrades, actually.
Mm.
So this can also be a little bit of a reason why you have that impediment, but that
Mhm.
blockage,
Right.
you know, accessing your Marsianness. Um,
Mhm.
and the reason I'm hammering on this so much is because this is the ruler of your ascendant. This is the ruler of your
Right.
chart. This is the indicator kind of your outward personality.
Mhm.
Okay, so how you show up in the world. And you're with the Scorpio rising, you want to be able to access your Mars. If your Mars
Right.
is stuck in the mud somewhere, you know you
Mhm.
sorry. Oh, okay, sorry, I muted you and then coughed.
You're good.
So sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. So yeah, so we want a good, healthy, powerful Mars when we have a Scorpio rising chart. And it's not that yours is unhealthy, but there are some hills to climb, you know.
Right.
And as you inhabit this chart for obviously your full lifespan, you will, you'll get there. But these are not things that are
Mhm.
are simple and easy for you.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. So obviously, when we look at this chart, the majority of the energy is in the 11th house in the sign of Virgo. That's where your sun is.
Mhm.
That's where Mercury is. And that's where Jupiter is. Your Mercury is another planet that is super interesting to me because it doesn't show retrograde because it had just stationed direct on the day of your birth.
Okay.
So earlier in the day, I mean, what happens is, okay, a little physics lesson, a little backing up.
Mhm.
We know that planets do not ever move backward. They're always moving forward. But from the perspective of Earth, which is how we look at planets in astrology, we
Right.
sometimes planets seem to go backwards, and that's because of the motion of the Earth. You know, when they first started
Mhm.
doing astrology, they didn't know that the Earth was moving. It just looked like everything else was
Right.
moving.
Mhm.
So, what happens at the end of a retrograde or at the beginning is it looks like it slows down and stops and then
Mhm.
starts moving the other direction. Okay. This is highly significant in terms of the strength of that planet, because when a planet is just moving quickly, it's it's not really, it's just like, think about, it's like an analogy of if you're shopping in a grocery store and you're just walking, you
Mhm.
got your cart and you're just walking along, you're just kind of passing things up and you're seeing them, but you're not really like putting a lot of energy and intensity into them. And
Mhm.
then you come to the cereal aisle and you're looking at the granola, whatever.
Mhm.
You slow down and you stop and you're putting a lot of a lot of energy and energy, but your focus is on this one thing.
Right.
This is kind of what it's like when a planet is stationing. It's like, oh, okay, wait, hang on. There's something's happening here.
Mhm.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
So so talk to me about your, well, no, let me talk to you about, and then you tell me. um, so Mercury in its own sign, it's Mercury is one of the Virgo is one of the two signs that Mercury rules. So Mercury in its own sign is a lot like, or any planet in its own sign is a lot like the difference between you being in your house and you being at another person's house, maybe someone you don't even
Mhm.
really know that well. And if you're in someone else's house, you're like, can I have the Wi-Fi password? Do you have
Right.
band-aids? Just all those little things, right? And when
Mhm.
you're at home, you you can, you don't even have to question those things. You can just, they're automatic. It's already set up the way that you like it. So
Mhm.
when Mercury is in his own house, it's much freer. He's much freer to do the things that Mercury is about doing, which is communication and learning and, you know, just reading words, all of those kinds of things.
Right.
Mercury in Virgo is very detail oriented. So do you find yourself that occasionally you'd kind of get lost in the weeds or kind of um, obsess on a particular sticking point?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm also like I'm kind of like a math-oriented person. Um, so maybe that's related, I don't know.
It very well could be. I mean, that would be, I think that would be a lovely placement for doing, for being a mathematics type person.
Mhm.
Because, you do need to be detail oriented and you can't just, oh, was that a, I don't know. I am not a
Mhm.
math person, but I mean, you have to but I do know that every one of the symbols that are used in math has a specific meaning, and you can't just
Right.
be slapdash about it. So,
Mhm.
yeah, perfect. So, you also have Jupiter there, which is your being born during the day. Jupiter is your most positive planet. It's your most helpful planet. And
Mhm.
you may already know this, but I talk to clients about Jupiter. Do you remember the movie A Christmas Carol with Scrooge?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you remember when he was meeting the ghost of Christmas Present, right? And he comes
Uh-huh.
into this room, and there's this guy, and he's in this robe, and there's food on the table, and there's presents, and this big guy, and he says, "Come in, man, and know me better." That's
Mhm.
Jupiter. So Jupiter is about generosity, about just largesse, about sharing and growth and expansion. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, all of this being in this 11th house for you. 11th house, as you may already know, is about groups and associations. And, it's kind of those, it's not the one-on-one bosom buddy kind of relationships. That's seventh house, but it's
Mhm.
that friendship group. Okay. So it's the group that you hung with in high school. It's the group that you hang with in college. It's, you know, um, professional associations. It's, clubs
Mhm.
and that kind of thing. There's a lot of energy for you in this arena, you know.
Mhm.
Um, is that something that is ringing true for you, or do you feel like that's
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like, something I was actually kinda thinking about, like, last year deciding where to go to college, is, like, I really like the feeling of, like, a community and, like, I go to, like, a very small college now that's, like, very, like, community driven, I guess.
perfect? Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Because this is not, because it's in the sign of Virgo, this is not a social butterfly necessarily, but
Right.
you do get and give a lot through your, through those community type organizations. And
Hmm.
it's like, you want to be a part of the you want to be a part of the community, but you don't necessarily want to be in the spotlight
Right. Mhm. Yeah,
in
that
those.
definitely rings true.
Okay, marvelous.
Mhm.
um okay, so, and then also you have these two over here. So moon in Cancer and um,
Mhm.
Saturn in Cancer. Okay. And
Mhm.
they're, I'm sorry, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Oh, no.
Okay. And so they're fairly close. They're not super tight, but they're definitely within, you know, we talk in astrology about like planets that are in the same sign are like roommates. I mean, not like in a housemates. Okay,
Right.
they're in, they're in the same house together,
Mhm.
literally. but
Mhm.
um, but you can think about this in terms of people. Like if you have, if you have a house and someone else comes and they have their own room and they, but they're there.
Mhm.
And then when they get um, within about 10 degrees of each other, then we're starting to talk about they're in the same room with one another. And when they get really
Mhm.
close, it's like they're in the same bed. They're sharing the same, like queen size bed with one another.
Mhm.
So these two are in the same room with each other at this point. Okay.
Right.
So Saturn and, so let's talk about the moon first. Pardon me. Your moon is out of bounds, which means there's a whole, your Virgo Mercury may understand this better than mine, but
Mhm.
but it's got to do with a concept called declination. And if you're interested, I can send you some articles. I can't explain them. I read the articles and I go, okay, you know, but it's got to do with the physical. It's like there's a band with the equator in the center, and at 23 degrees 27 minutes, either north or south, that's the band that is inbounds. And occasionally a planet will be found either farther north or farther south than that band. What astrologers have noticed about that is that that planet tends to be more like effusive, like
Mhm.
more free to act. It can be either a case where it's like a, like we can take Mercury out of bounds, for example, Mercury being the mind.
Mhm.
Um, if Mercury is out of bounds, sometimes we can see things like genius, like innovative thinking, and oh my gosh.
Mhm.
And then on the other hand, we can also see like insanity.
Right.
Okay. So
Mhm.
both ends of that spectrum where it's like, you know, and we're hoping always for the genius end, but
Mhm.
so with the moon, we're talking about our emotional selves. Okay. And with
Mhm.
moon in Cancer, the moon in Cancer tends to be fairly emotional anyway. Um, and then the out of boundsness makes that, kicks that up another notch.
Yeah.
So, in addition, this being near Saturn makes me, so I'm going to ask an indelicate question. Is
Mhm.
relationship with parents good?
Um, yeah, like, it's complicated. My it's with my mom especially, like, I'm very close to my parents, I'm only child,
Mm-hmm.
um, but there is some complication with my mom because, she's, like, alcoholic my kind of entire life, up until, actually this past weekend, she's 2 months sober, um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's been very, like, rocky kind of my whole life, so
Okay.
that can make sense, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of shows there. And we have the addition here of this guy, this is it's an asteroid, I think, or a planetoid. They keep
Uh-huh.
changing these categories and it doesn't matter. It's Chiron. And so
Mm.
Chiron, you may have heard some because it, people talk about that in pop astrology a little bit, but, or in just, just conversation. But
Mhm.
Chiron, in the legend, in the myth, Chiron was a centaur, half
Mhm.
horse, half man. And he was a healer. And he was descended from one of the gods. And so he had immortality. He was immortal. And he was just living his life, doing his thing, healing people, making people, feel better. And then one day
Mhm.
he was wounded by an arrow. And this was a pretty serious wound. And he was immortal, so he couldn't die. And he tried and tried and tried to heal this wound, and he could not. And so what wound up happening was he went to the gods in Olympus and said, I want to give up my immortality because I'm just living in suffering and I can't,
Right.
this is just going on and on. And so
Mhm.
his immortality passed to someone else and he died. And what we find in the placement of Chiron is it's the place where we are wounded, and we all have a wound.
Mhm.
And it's also the place where, as we find ways to heal ourselves of that wound, we can bring healing to other people.
Mhm.
So this is actually, it's not just the moon Saturn thing, it's also the the opposition with Chiron made me question,
Right.
what the story was with
Mhm.
parents. So yeah. So are you okay? Are you getting support? Are you getting what you need?
Yeah. Yeah,
Excellent.
no, definitely, yeah.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And I know, and you don't know me from Adam.
Mhm.
I'm just caring.
Mhm.
So the last thing I wanted to really talk about is your first and seventh houses. You don't have any planetary placements in there,
Right.
which is okay. There's, but there's a lot of energy there, and there's a lot of energy there for you right now as well. And I'll show you why as we go on. But the thing I wanted to talk about was the nodes. So the nodes of the moon they are not planets, they are calculated points. And these are
Mhm.
the points at which eclipses are happening or are, going to happen, did happen, whatever. Um, they're the points at which the moon and the sun will be crossing to form eclipses, either total or partial. Um, but the significance of the nodes in in a house or in a sign is about our kind of, I'm going to use words that are overused: destiny
Mhm.
and karma.
Mhm.
um, Destiny in the sense of the birth chart or the universe or whatever is saying go this way, and karma in the sense of this is kind of where I feel more comfortable and want to stay. And but it's not all that great for me to
Right.
to stay in this area. And
Mhm.
so what's showing up here for you is that, and this is birth chart, so this is a life pattern, is
Mhm.
that the universe is suggesting to you that you need to be putting energy into relationship, hence the north node here in seventh house, which is about
Mhm.
relationships. So it's saying put energy into relationships, not giving power away.
Mhm.
Find that balance. This is the balance thing, because
Mhm.
the south node in the first house tends to indicate that you kind of tend to want to bubble. You
Mhm.
kind of tend to like your own, you like your own company, you like your own space. You kind of have a a tendency to boundary, you know,
Yeah.
making sense. I'm seeing you nod.
Yeah, definitely.
and I'm not here to advise you, oh, drop those boundaries, don't have boundaries. No, but finding that balance where you can, invest into relationships, seventh house. And when we talk about seventh house, we're not only talking about love relationships. We're talking about any just one-on-one, um, dyad kind of, I mean, this is a seventh house thing for the moment, or for however long our
Right.
connection lasts. But having allowing and creating a balance between yourself and your tendency to stay within that bubble and the needs of having and forming healthy relationships.
Right.
And this is where I'm going to pop us into our next. Can you still see this?
I think I'm seeing the same thing as earlier.
Oh, okay. Let me see then. Here we go. How's that? Okay. And then, because I want to add current transits to this as I talk about seventh house. So now what we're looking at, do you see two wheels?
Yeah.
One inside the other. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what we're looking at, this is still your birth chart in the center. And then around the outside is current transits, and it's in my location, but it's the same in yours.
Right.
But the difference would be where the ascendant and the midheaven are. So, and we're not looking at those right now, so it's okay. But take a look at these nodes. You are having what we call a nodal return. It's every 18 years, and the nodes move in funny ways. They move backwards a lot, but they come back around to the same spot where they were when you were born. 9 years from now, they'll be flipped. 9 years ago, they were flipped. Okay, so at age 9, if you can think back that far and be like, you may have gone through a phase where you had the north node here and the south node here. And so you might have been much more asserting your own independence and, pushing, and, that's part of it's kind of a developmental stage for 9-year-olds to be like, well, right. I'm not a baby anymore, but this is one of those ongoing transits. And so what's happening right now, I'm guessing, is that these nodes have come back around to the spot where they were when you were born, and they're poking you. And they're saying, so we set up this bargain or this plan when you were born, and it was going to be about you finding this balance between, myself, my, taking care of my needs, my tendency to, blanket up, and my, need to move out into the world and have relationships with other people. And so the nodes are back going, okay, so how are we doing? How's that working out? What are we doing? Have we made any progress? And this is going to be a lifetime pattern. It's going to continue to happen every 18 years, but I'm going to ask the question, how are we doing?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because I kind of fell out with like my childhood best friend about a year ago. Like it was kind of like a long-term thing. But like pretty much about a year ago. So and now I'm like trying to open myself out more because she was kind of like the one person that like I really didn't have that like bubble around. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So let's move into the charts I sent you about the eclipses, because I think this is going to be significant too. I think I showed you May 16th of 2022. Is that the one I sent you? Should be.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So eclipses, I mean, I've briefly mentioned eclipses because that's kind of the point of the nodes, or the, the signification of the nodes, the physical manifestation of the nodes. But eclipses were one of the first things that astrologers, before they even knew that astrology was a thing, it was kind of the first manifestation of what's happening. I mean, you can imagine people are just living their lives, doing their thing, and all of a sudden the sun is gone, and it's like that. That had to be quite a thing. And so people would start taking note of, the sun was gone the other day and then something happened. The moon was gone the other day and then something happened. So that this is kind of the very beginnings of astrology, was with eclipses and paying attention to events that happened. And so we have, over the millennia, we have noticed that eclipses tend to signify great beginnings or great endings. And it would be interesting. I should pop back in and take a look. Let me back up. The first eclipse that happened in Taurus and Scorpio was this one here, and this was in November of 21. And this actually might be the first one that I sent you, because take a look. This is right your ascendant, which is you, and
Right.
then the sun is right on top of that, or within a little more than 1 degree away from your ascendant. So right on top of. And then your descendant, which is just like the ascendant is you, the descendant is other. Okay. And the moon was there. And so this is that, and this was a partial eclipse. Not that matters. It's not like a total eclipse is more intense than a partial eclipse. It mostly has to do with how closely these eclipses are playing with the sensitive points in your chart. Okay, and so this one is right on top of those. Would this be around the time that you and your friend had a falling out?
It was like, I don't know, it was kind of like a gradual thing, but kind of started like June 2020.
Okay.
And then
okay.
Yeah, and then maybe like officially like over like April 2021.
Okay, so this is a little later than that. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. But this still speaks to the same concept of this is you in, and when we talk about eclipses, we talk about the eclipse happens and then it's kind of a window. There's about 6 months. Okay.
Right.
So this is you, not necessarily the falling out with your friend, but this can even be you grappling with, so how do I, what do I do now? How do I do friendships? I mean, this friend has always been there. They've always been, I haven't needed to feel armored around, or have my blanket of security around them. And what do I do now? How do I have friends? I assume this friend is not at school with you.
No.
Yeah. And are you like, you just don't even know where they are in the world? Are they just like,
actually, we actually ended up going to, like, she goes to school like in Philadelphia and I'm like the suburbs, so it's kind of funny coincidence.
Yeah. Okay. And are you, what's the nature of the relationship now? Is it like, I hate you? Is it like indifferent? Is it
It's kind of just like, yeah, like indifference. Like
okay?
if I saw her, we probably would say hello to each other, but
Okay.
mm,
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So this is a um I would propose that this is not just about this one friend.
mhm,
There's a period of time that you're going through, and you are getting to figure out, how do I do this? How do I navigate this? What do I
mhm,
do when people, violate my boundaries, and that Mars of mine, which is not very, which is kind of encumbered, you know,
mhm,
doesn't want to speak out and say, hey, that was not okay. That was not cool. You know,
right.
how do I do this? Can I just stay in my room? And
Mhm,
can I just isolate? And
mhm,
not necessarily literally in your room, but in your
mhm,
lane, in your bubble.
mhm,
So this kind of is that whole, and it's gonna last for a little while longer. um
mhm,
we have another eclipse coming up here in October, in the same, all in your first house at this point. So this will be a
mhm,
solar eclipse, um, where the moon covers up the sun. Similar concept.
mhm,
This will also have Venus co-present. So, you know, one of two things here. This might be more of a leaning into the energy of Venus. Can be very much, I just want to be comfortable in my space. I
mhm.
love my blanket. I keep saying blanket. I'm not meaning this like your Linus carrying around your security blanket, but 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 there's something about self nurturing there, and
Mm,
caring for oneself, um and and at the same time we've got Uranus across in the seventh house. Uranus has been in the seventh house for you for a while. Let me look that
mm,
up. um, well, why is it doing that? Oh, I know, hang on, sorry. I should be faster than this. Taurus, there we go. Yeah, so Uranus moved into Taurus, into your seventh house sign in March of 2019. So,
mm,
and I talked before about Uranus being value neutral. It's like, well, it just needs to change, you know. So
mhm,
you've had this friend for a while now, and
mm,
as of 2019, and Uranus is coming in going, well, let's change some things. And it's not about the
mhm,
specific friend necessarily. It's about Uranus is interested in your energy and your, what you, I mean, actually, well, sorry, Gemini brain just went off. Uh, um, it's about, how, what needs to change and what needs to, and for you,
mhm.
you can be like, what needs to be made better. Uranus doesn't care if it's made better, it just knows it needs to change,
Right.
so,
Mhm,
and that's going to continue for a while. um When does Uranus go into Gemini? Let's see. 2025.
Mm.
So this is what, like a 6-year process for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Mhm.
I always talk about transits as a gift. It's or a delivery. It's like someone can show up at your house and say, here's a delivery for you. And you can slam the door and say, no, go away, go away, go away. But
Mhm.
they will try and come back. You know, they're not just going to, you know, they still have this box that's, you know, got your name on it. So
Mhm.
you can accept the delivery and go, okay, thank you, thanks, great, I wanted this, you know.
Mhm.
But and then start working with that, or you can keep slamming the door. Eventually it will go away and it will not keep trying to you know, make this delivery forever. But
Mhm.
yeah, how is this striking you? Is this
Yeah, no, I think that really makes a lot of sense, especially because like, 2025 is, like, the year I graduate college, which is
mm,
I don't know, it's kind of a coincidence, I guess, but
yeah,
yeah, no, it's really interesting, yeah.
yeah. Well, and this year you are in what's called a seventh house perfection year, so this is very much uppermost in your mind,
Mm.
as far as, you know, this is just what's happening, you know.
Right.
It's true for everybody who's in their 18th year of life, you know. um
Mhm.
we all, you know, everybody who's in your same age cohort is going through that same thing, and you can probably look around
Right.
and see everybody going, you know, relationships are
Mhm.
very, you know, especially love relationships, and when you're 18, very much uppermost
Mhm.
on everybody's mind, but friendships as well, you know. So
Mhm.
yeah. And so I wanted to back out of this because I had talked about your son was going to be more significant here than just, okay, sun's in Virgo. That means you
Right.
like detail. You know, um, you've got some aspects that we want to take a look at. So, and the reason I had to go through all of that to get to this, you'll see in a moment,
Mhm.
you've got the sun is at 27 degrees Virgo. And you see this little line right here? It is forming a
Mhm.
trine to your descendant and your node. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's unpack that. What does that mean? A trine is an easy aspect. Okay. A trine is a trine is almost like advantages that you have that you don't even realize that everybody doesn't have. You know, it's like that you may know people like this where it's like, you know, they grew up with money, and you know, when they are you know, trying to counsel other people or advise them, they're like, well, just have your therapist help you with, and people are like, have a
Mhm.
therapist, I can't afford that, you know. And they're
Mhm.
like, everybody doesn't have a therapist, what do you mean? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like this aspect is pretty easy for you, and you know, and you can almost take it for granted.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, and one other, let's talk about, it's not drawn on here, but you also have a what's called a sextile aspect, which is another easy aspect, but not quite so overwhelmingly easy as a trine, but you have
Mhm.
that same aspect from the sun to your ascendant. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's talk about what this means. Um, Looking at the chart globally, we have a lot of energy right here. And we have this karmic, um, karmic slash destiny kind of stuff happening with the first and seventh house. Okay.
Mhm.
All of these things have to do with people. Think about this. You,
Mhm.
your one-on-one relationships, and then your groups and associations. Okay. The reason I'm talking about all of this is because you asked me about your career, which is
Mhm,
10th house, as you probably know.
mhm,
So 10th house, it doesn't have any planets in it, which a lot of people, when they are first looking at charts or when they don't quite know a lot about astrology, they go, does that mean I'm not going to have a career? No, no, it doesn't.
mhm,
What we do when we don't have planets or placements in a house is we look to the ruler of that house. So that sign is Leo. Leo is ruled by your sun. Okay.
mhm,
So what this says to me is that regarding your question about career, is that, and this is going to sound strange for somebody with so much Virgo energy, but I would say that what you are going to be doing for your career is going to have you working with people a lot,
mhm,
almost to the point where you are almost on stage. And I don't literally mean like
mhm.
you're going to be a Broadway actor, okay?
Right. Mhm,
But I mean that would be very typical of a Leo 10th house, but
mhm,
not necessarily with like all the Virgo stuff. But
mhm.
like for example, something where you train people, like
Mm,
as a like when you first go to work for a company and they have someone who teaches you all this stuff, and
right.
being that kind of a trainer kind of person, or it's about, I mean, teaching. It's about being, being willing to be upfront, which is not your
Mm,
comfort zone, but
mhm,
it's good for you in the sense of career.
right.
Okay. um
Mhm,
being a little bit out front and being very much connected to and communicating with people.
mhm.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not I realize that's not a major. and and honestly, I would hesitate to give you a major even if I saw one.
Right. Mhm.
Because what do I know? I mean, I just know
Yeah.
your chart. I can't be like, oh, you should go into, logistics or something,
Right.
you know.
Mhm,
But actually you shouldn't go into logistics because you
mhm,
need to be interacting with people is
mhm,
is the main thing. And then, so whatever
mhm.
it is that you're, I would combine that with whatever it is that you're feeling a natural
Right.
interest in your schooling.
Right.
That
Mhm,
Mercury in Virgo, you are capable of doing pretty much anything you want,
mhm,
you know.
mhm.
I mean, you totally can. Just I would lean a little bit into the people aspect of
Right.
the job. Okay.
Mhm,
Your midheaven over here is, so the MC is the midheaven, and midheaven is the point in the chart in which we are most visible. It is, and you were almost born, you weren't, well, were almost born at high noon actually,
mhm,
but it's the highest point in the sky in the place where you were born. It's one of the reasons we ask for a place when we do a chart, so we can see where the
mhm.
midheaven is. um, this is falling into your 11th house. So we not only have all the energy of Mercury and Jupiter and the sun, we also have the midheaven. And so the midheaven is your reputation, it's what you are known for. And for a lot of people, the midheaven falls into their 10th house. And those are the kind of people that when we talk about them, we say, oh, Mary, she's a lawyer, right? We talk
Right.
about them, their
Mhm,
reputation is their career.
mhm,
That that is not present in your chart. Okay. Your
mhm,
reputation is going to be in the realm of groups and fellowships and associations. Okay.
mhm,
For some people, this falls into the realm of like extended family. For some people, this falls into the realm of, clubs and associations that they form or join,
mhm.
you know. Um, so, and none of this means that your career is not going to be prominent. It's just not going to be the thing, you know, someday when your obituary is written, it is not going to be, well, Molly was a
Right.
whatever,
Mhm.
you know, mathematician, or I mean, that's not going to be the lead of the story.
Right. Mhm.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Um, let's see, what else, what else, what else? Oh, and I looked at your current solar return chart, and I get why you're asking this question.
Mhm.
So here's your solar return chart. This is for, so a solar return is it's the moment where the sun comes back around to the spot where your sun was when you were born.
Mhm.
It's the astrological way of saying happy birthday, right?
Mhm.
And and so what tends to happen is that is a predictive chart for the following year. Okay, so this was from last year, from your birthday last year, and in
Mhm.
your 10th house you have Jupiter and Saturn. And so what's happening, and Saturn is retrograde there even. So what's happening is that Saturn is going, what are you going to do when you grow up? Hurry up, make a decision. Come on, come on,
Mhm.
come on, come on. And Jupiter is either there going, can we just relax? Can we just enjoy this pandemic just ended, or
Mhm.
sort of, and we're, and can we just have fun for a minute? Saturn, shut up,
Mhm.
or it's going, yeah, Saturn's kind of right. You do need to decide, make a decision. Yeah. So I get why you're asking that.
Mhm.
It, I haven't looked at this year's. It may not, this is my, um, this is not my astrologer brain talking now. This is my mom brain. Um,
Mhm.
you have time.
Yeah.
You have time. You have time to make a decision.
Mhm.
So don't let that Saturn be pushing you into just tick a box so we
Right.
can move on. You know,
Mhm.
you have time.
Yeah.
Yeah, next year, with your solar return that's coming up next year, you got Uranus in the 10th. So any decision that you do wind up making may be changed. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
okay. I
Mhm.
have totally lost track of time. No, we're good. We still have time. Okay. Okay. What have I brought up? Do you have questions having to do with what's what I've talked about?
Um,
I feel like I hit you with a lot.
I think I don't know if I have any questions. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess like maybe a little more about like maybe like this summer, like the year ahead, like I guess maybe what's in store for me.
Sure. For next summer, or this
Yeah,
coming up summer.
like basically I
Yes.
guess the rest of this year pretty much.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look. We go back to the current transits here. And so I'm going to start just, we don't want to move it by 1
Mhm.
hour. I'm actually going to move it by weeks. There we go. So what's happening here? We've talked about Uranus, and Mercury currently in your 7th house retrograde. Did we talk about that, or did I just write about that?
I think so.
Okay. And you've also got Venus there. So there's a lot of current, as this reading shows, there's a lot of current energy happening in this house. As we start to, and then what else? Saturn is in your 4th house. So fourth house being home, family, child at home, but also your home.
Mhm.
Have there been any issues regarding, well, past couple of years, that could be just even the pandemic and the
Mhm.
issues with boundaries and restrictions around that. Has there been any other kind of um, boundaries, limitations on home?
Um, well, we moved into, like, a new apartment, like, fall 2019,
Mm-hmm.
um, and recently there's just been, like, some issues just with, like, I don't know, like, mice issues in the apartment building, but that's kind of all I can
Okay.
think of. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that would, Saturn there moving toward your natal Uranus, that may end, but not right away. Um, let's just
Mhm.
take a look at that. So Saturn goes retrograde. Woohoo. Yeah, it's going to be there a while. That may not mean that you have your mice the whole time. Um,
Mhm.
so by August, Mars has moved well into your seventh house.
Mhm.
Let's see, when does it go in? It goes in July, right around July 4th. So that can be, so Mars can be either um, difficulties and arguments and tension, or it can just be energy, okay, and
Mhm.
focus and drive. So and especially with your Mars being your chart ruler, because it rules your ascendant, you can
Mhm.
use that to kind of lean in and follow up with the stuff we've been talking about, well, relationships, they're up for you. And so this infusion of Mars in Taurus can can be a like a rocket boost,
Mhm.
like light a we light a fire, and then you can. So what I'm saying here is early July, um, through August may be a good time for you to start focusing even more on, you know, um, forming new relationships
Mm.
that you can allow yourself to be unbubbled in,
Right.
you know,
Mhm.
while still looking for the potential of, yeah, there may be difficulties, and there may be flare-ups of anger and frustration, but that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong.
Right.
you know
Mhm.
it gives you the opportunity to lean into that Pisces Mars in here, where it's like, yeah, I just really don't want to say anything, so it's easier for me to just stop. And
Right.
and
Mhm.
that's the South Node in the first house as well. It's just easier. Yes, it is easier, but
Mhm.
this is a skill that you get to learn.
Mhm.
Make sense?
Yeah.
um I feel like I'm hammering on the same stuff. Let's find something new. uh so Sun in Leo, once the sun moves into Leo, which is around the 21st of July, this may actually help you in your, if you are bound and determined to make a decision. And I assume this is about declaring a major.
Yeah, actually, like, I'd probably be, like, finishing, like, class registration at that time.
Okay. So, this might be a good time to, to have some insight and some, flash of light,
Mhm.
in that 10th house, where you know, sometimes when we're like hesitating and we're dithering about something, and we're like, I don't know, do I do this? Do I do that?
Mhm.
Um, when a planet like the sun moves into that house, it can be like, oh, I know what I can do, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So it
Yeah.
it may be that that will be the kind of the impetus that will kind of help you make a decision.
Right.
What are you
Mm-hmm.
dithering, that's my word. What are you trying to decide between? Do you have a list or?
Um, well, I was kind of like trying to see if I could take more like a more like health classes, like to declare like a health studies minor.
Mhm.
Because I've really been interested in like going into public health. So I want to see if I can like swap out of a class to like make that more possible. And it would be around this time.
Okay.
Mhm.
That makes total sense too, because with that prominent Mars ruling your first house, that Mars also rules your sixth house,
Mhm.
which is in Aries. You don't have planets in your natal chart in Aries, but it links back to that
Mhm.
Mars. Sixth house is about health, among other things. It can be your own personal health, or it can be like an interest in health. Um,
Right.
so yeah, that would, that could definitely work. It could definitely play. Okay,
Mhm.
just make sure you're with people. I mean, I still think that
Yeah.
if it's something where you're just on a computer all the time, it's probably going to be either that. Let's say this: either if it is something that you are working mostly with data or with objects, not with people, um, then in order for
Mhm.
your chart to be happy, you will want to um, fill your off time with people.
Right.
You
Mhm.
there is a real
Yeah.
there's a lot of energy in this chart that if you are just in a little room with with nobody else, um,
Mhm.
a lot of energy that goes, doesn't have an outlet.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah, that's I think that's actually very good advice for me because I feel like I'm kind of leaning towards to going into something where I probably would just be at a computer, and I'm like, I don't wanna do that. So I think I should try to remember that more.
Yeah, I mean, and not to say that I mean, Lord knows computers are marvelous. I love them, but if we're like this, with the in the screen, um,
Mhm.
like I said, there's just a lot for you that's in this chart going. You need to be interacting with people. You need to be able to take a moment in the sun, so to speak.
Yeah. Mhm.
Stand up and be like, I'm, here I am. And
Mhm.
this birth chart is the promise of your entire life. It's not
Right.
saying that at at this age you're going to fully be into that, fully be stepping forward. This may be something, especially with all that Virgo, that you need to take time to make sure that you know everything that you need to know, that that you've done your preparation.
Mhm.
I will give you a word of wisdom for your entire life. You
Mhm.
can get stuck in that and
Mhm.
over prepare and never move into the spotlight,
Mhm.
but you need to. So definitely do the prep. You're in that now, I think. But
Mhm.
at some point you're going to have to bite the bullet and you know make that leap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
How are we feeling? Are we?
That was it was really, I guess eye-opening, I guess. It was really interesting. No, I feel like it confirmed a lot of things I was thinking, but also made me like reflect on things I didn't know I should. But
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent. That sounds like I did my job. Because yeah, I mean, if I'm just telling you stuff you already know, well, what are we doing? Brilliant. Brilliant. So I have well, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Mhm.
Well, no, I'm not going to stop the recording because right now it's not working. Yeah, help me. Oh, there we go.
Okay, good.
This is not my. There we go.